genomics and in regards to how acupuncture plays a role in genomics. So I know that's a big word, it's complicated, but I think we really ought to know a little more about it because I think this is the way the trends in medicine are going. So genomics is really about your DNA and the structure of it and who you are. So when I say genomics, your genome is who you are. Your hair, skin, eye color, these are things that don't change. But I think the thing that people really worry most about and where it's relevant is disease, right? And where genomics is like where on the genome is the cancer, the diabetes, the heart disease, and the longevity, right? We know things like blue zone, but people in the blue zone have the genes for longevity, and genomics is really where it is. So we have all the terms like epigenomics, and that's the best way to kind of give you an analogy is switches. Like genomics are the switches that turn the bad genes off and the good genes on, right? And epigenetics is what turns those genes on and off. So epigenomics is how we turn them on and off, and then epigenetics is what turns them on and off. And I think what's important to mention here first and foremost is that yes, epigenetic acupuncture has an epigenetic mechanism, but things like lifestyle, diet, what we're eating, things like that, we know for sure can turn those genes on and off. And if we just use the simple analogy of switches, it's important because we know your doctor asks your family history. What did grandma and grandpa die of? Any family history of cancer? Why is that important? Because Watson and Crick, the guys who invented the double helix model of the genome, basically said that's a death sentence, nail in the coffin, you can now outrun your destiny. But there was a sideline player who turned out to be right now, Dr. Wilson, who said, no, environment has a big factor. And there was guys that proved Watson and Crick wrong. Like, yeah, I got heart disease, but I can go run miles and clean up my diet and live a little bit longer. And that's important because we do have a course lined up specifically for an epigenetic mechanism for acupuncture and fertility. But takeaway is, when I talk about it and I tell other people, they tell me genomics is a snooze fest. But these people who tell me that genomics is a snooze fest are the same ones who want to be biohacking experts.
What do you mean by biohacking? Huh?
Biohacking, right? Like, what is it? What is biohacking? What is, I don't know, what does Instagram tell you to do these days?
Ice bath, Doc.
That's
the newest thing.
Right.
You don't want to jump in the cold water, Doc?
Again, so we talked about it on the stories. Good news, you don't have to jump into an ice bath because where the genomic portion is, right? Instead of like sitting in front of a red light or buying the new hot toy on Instagram or whatever your telephone tells you to do, what is it that we can do to turn those genes on and off? And that gets back to mechanism, right? So what is it? And I think in my experience, in my research, I found out that nitric oxide, the stress chemical, right? When we injure the area with the acupuncture, you know, we know for a fact we release nitric oxide. Remember that little diagram I showed you very early on when we started working together? All those crazy chemicals that kind of... So all those things are precursor molecules. So when you release nitric oxide, the body will recoup and make more, and that's called nitric oxide synthase. And nitric oxide synthase is a precursor molecule to sirtuins, which are the really big thing. So if you don't know, there's the SIRT diet, check it out.
For those of you who were here last week, this is why it's important to listen to every episode. We did bring it up. So sirtuins are those particular proteins which are associated with longevity. You find them in these areas. In your native land, Greece, there's a blue zone.
Yes.
Costa Rica, these are areas where people are very senescent. They live to a very long age, usually 100. Retaining their health. There's somewhat Japan, Costa Rica, and Greece are the three that come off the top of my head.
Loma Linda, California, which is weird because that's a very non-homogeneous society. The Seventh-day Adventists who live there are diverse in background. So I don't know that they managed to get all the longevity. Yeah, it's wild.
The Seventh-day Adventist hotspot?
Yes. Diet and community for them are the big ones, right? I think the one that they pulled out from Okinawa was purpose. The old guy doing, you know, Kempo karate every morning, or going out and tending to your garden. I think Greece can take and Sardinia can take the cake with the wine. I think they got the big one, resveratrol. And then Costa Rica, I think, was big on the plant diet, right? Like corn, beans, and squash, the three sisters of the American pre-Columbian exchange. But these are all important because we hear terms around. As a matter of fact, who was the singer, the portly singer who wanted to lose some weight?
Adele.
Adele, that's right. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Adele. You're the first one that came to mind.
She went on what was called the SIRT diet. If you look up SIRT, right, sirtuins, it's a shorthand for foods that activate your compounds, sirtuin activating compounds. So,
but these are different, right? These aren't like the foods that taste like dog crap for
I don't know, man. I like arugula. I don't think everybody's going to agree on that. So, red onion, the berries, the black walnut, the olive oil, dates, buckwheat. There's a bunch of stuff out there that activate it. But what we're getting back to say is that, right, you don't have to jump in an ice bath if you're following. And I'm not saying only eat SIRT foods, but if you incorporate them into your lifestyle, you could, in theory, dodge that cancer bullet. Because let's face it, if you took all those people living in the blue zones and brought them to U.S., right, and gave them the American diet, do you feel, you don't have to be an epigeneticist to make a bold claim like they're not going to hit 80, 90 in that level.
Not good for them,
right? Yeah.
So if, just to kind of use this as a touch point, so it sounds like the implication of what you're saying is like whether you do acupuncture, you're doing ice bath, whether you're using these SIRT foods, that our lifestyle is actively turning on and turning off genes, which means that the average person, the average patient has more control over their destiny in terms of their health than they previously thought, right? Watson Crick is telling you, your father died from a heart attack, your daddy's daddy died from a heart attack, your daddy's daddy, you're going to die from a heart attack.
Exactly.
But you're saying that you can actually influence that gene to turn on and off, and you don't have to jump in a pot of cold water to do it.
Right. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying the data shows that, and that's why it's important. So genomics. So I'll give you an example to kind of put this in clinical relevance. Somebody very close to me is worried about developing breast cancer. Three of them.
That was private. I'm not supposed to tell.
Yeah, that their three maternal cousins developed breast cancer. One was stage 4, treated successfully. The second one had a radical mastectomy, and then this third sister had benign hyperplasia but didn't want to chance it and had a hysterectomy, double mastectomy. And this patient didn't know if they had cancer in their family because their mother passed away early and left no family history, right, of something very sudden and nothing genomic, or possibly genomic, we don't know, because it involves heart disease. So what do we tell that person? Well, it's the same thing I would say to any person. If grandma died of cancer, mother's in treatment, and you're 16 years old, you are entitled, I believe, insurance has to cover a BRCA test to find out whether you're positive for the BRCA gene. Now, does that mean that you go for a double mastectomy? Absolutely not. We have the tarot card, the crystal ball, that kind of tells us that this could possibly happen. So what we can do is implement a lifestyle change. We can move away from the nuclear power plant, we clean water, and then diet. We know diet is a big, big thing. Like if Forks Over Knives told us anything, we know that diet is a contributing factor. So reducing that. And I'm not saying you won't get it. I'm saying that you can prolong it coming around. But environment, lifestyle factors, genes don't exist in a vacuum. Okay? Everybody says genes for this, and they blame their sort of like their destiny on it. But what we're saying is that their environment is a huge factor. Huge factor.
So to break this down an example, what you're saying is that everybody has a genetic, we can call it destiny or genetic potential, right?
Yes.
So let's say that such and such has the genetic predisposition to have a widowmaker heart attack at 40, right? Correct. So they are walking around with this proverbial bomb, right? And you're saying the epigenetics is just, when is that match going to light the fuse?
Right.
And you're saying that based on their lifestyle changes and epigenetics, you can actually make it so not only could the bomb not go off, you might make it so the fuse gets wet. Or you cut off the fuse, where you've changed your life to such a vast degree where you're in a circumstance where the bomb won't go off because you've taken care of yourself, as opposed to somebody else who's living the same way that their ancestors did, unaware. It might seem like fate when they have a widowmaker heart attack, but the truth of the matter is it's because they weren't utilizing this mechanism of epigenomics, which is allowing them to shift and change that bond into something more benign.
The fuse is a good analogy, but I'm going to reiterate the switch analogy. That's the best one. All the literature kind of uses it to sort of help people internalize, like turning the switches, and you can turn the longevity gene on and off. You can turn the cancer gene on and off. So we have Blue Zone, whoever came up with the Blue Zone, the researcher, Dr. Walter Longo found that these people have the genes for longevity and associated with their lifestyle and diet. And then CERT foods, or CERT type foods, is further taking these specific foods and saying, this is how this type of food turns the gene on and off. Like we all have, we hear about intermittent fasting, we hear about calorie restriction. What is it about that prolongs life or is healthy? And really what it is like when you stress the body to a certain degree, or you mimic, the certs are basically fasting mimicking type components. So it's not like you're starving yourself, but the body thinks like it's not getting the right amount of calories for survival. So what it does is it's forced to hold on to that cellular structure that you have, recycle all the old stuff, right, through autophagy, and then make better cells through structure, histones, like the building blocks of the DNA, and make better cells. Because what powers the cell? What's the guiding principle of the cell? Not powers the cell, but what is the blueprint of every cell?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. I thought you were going to ask me about mitochondria.
That's the powerhouse cell, yes. 6th grade bio, everybody, review it. Again, so why is this boring? Why are we talking about it? When I was doing the doctoral course, I found like at the time the conversation in the household was genomics, like the science of the DNA, and seeing how it's applied clinically. But I thought that like using it for screening. Look, I'll tell you full disclosure. My grandfather was an amputee. My father has diabetes. He takes a boatloads of med. I had a few blood tests where the blood sugar was high. Like, I have no excuse, right? I hold all the cards, right? I'm on the inside. What do we got to do? We got to drop the 50 pounds, take the blood work cleans up. So is it to say that I won't ever get diabetes? Probably I won't. I haven't so far. I'm 50. I'm trying to dodge that bullet by shutting that switch on and off. And then vice versa, on my end, my father has BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia. I had an uncle who had prostate cancer, was removed. I got an uncle with bladder cancer. Like, what is it do I need? Do I need to get hit by a brick? Yes, I did get hit by a brick, and that's why I decided to drop the weight. And really, that's what it comes down to. It's just making those lifestyle changes and acupuncture, right?
So here's the question, because we don't want to be like other doctors where we finger wagging them of knowledge that they don't have. How can they use this information to live longer? That's essentially what everybody wants, right? They don't want to learn about this for hypothetics. They want to just learn, how can I implement this in my life to be healthier, happier, and get what I want? What are some things that they can do besides coming to see us, right?
Right. So again, if we had to reemphasize something, diet, and if you were to look into all the evidence behind Blue Zone, obviously it's not controversial to say that a plant-based diet is better for you. Right, with minimal,
That goes back to your ancestor, right? Hippocrates, right? Let the medicine be thy food.
Look at that.
Medicine.
The Haitian wants to tell the Greek about Hippocrates. Thank you. Yes, that is 100% true. But Edison said something too. Wasn't the doctor of the future is going to use diet and I don't know, light bulbs to cure disease?
Yeah. What was he? He wasn't Haitian or Greek.
No. Did a lot of good things though, right?
Yeah, from what
Movies, music.
Well, not if you're Tesla.
Not if you're Tesla. Yeah. Okay. Conversation for another time.
Yeah.
All right, so we're preparing to, it's not always about how long am I going to live. I think a lot of this has to say we're preparing for a course on epigenetic mechanism for acupuncture for women's health and fertility. So if we were to take that same model and apply it to women's health and reverse engineer pathophysiology, if you're kind of like in a sort of fertility conundrum and you're exploring IVF and you're stimulating and they tell you that your eggs are no good, you're running out of time, you're too old, what can we do? Can we apply this sort of mechanism to fertility? Can we turn the clock back and produce eggs? In my clinical experience and what I've seen over time, absolutely. Because what do we say here? How do we improve the function of an organ, right? We improve circulation, bring the blood flow, but we talked about local, regional, and central effects. What's that fourth mechanism? It's the epigenetic, right? How do we make an egg cell better after this conversation that we had, right? Do we turn the switches on in the ovary to tell it to make better eggs? Absolutely. Yes. Do we turn the switches on in the uterus to make a better lining for as better endometrial receptivity, implantation, and successful conception? Implantation? Yes. Absolutely.
Do your best to promote a lifestyle which turns down the switches for cortisol production? Yes.
Yes.
Right? So.
Yes, actually, the literature will say that that's the central mechanism is the first front line. It's like getting that cutting back on the cortisol and the brain communicate the reproductive organs, but also that cascade, that chemical cascade of like inserting a filament has multi-level. If we ever want to talk about value, what can we do with one treatment? Improve egg quality, endometrial receptivity, reduce stress, balance everything out.
And just so that people understand, this isn't like ancient Chinese manual saying that. This is like current research, peer-reviewed, NIH.
There's a lot of big terms. We have things like bioinformatics, right? We have things like PCR, real-time PCR testing. By the way, PCR testing, when you're looking to find out if you have COVID, what you're looking is for the genetic material of the COVID virus. That's the mechanism in real time in action that kind of looks for this sort of stuff that tells you where these things are. But you don't have to be an epigeneticist to really understand or benefit from it. What we need is a doctor who can help you kind of communicate these things, or a practitioner who kind of navigate and help you where you need to go without kind of pointing the finger or preaching. We know that stuff is done, right? Like, it's over with. You can't get away with that anymore. You have to be part of the conversation with your patient.
Absolutely. Last question is for those who might have it out there. When you're talking about improving health using these epigenetic mechanisms, are you strictly talking about more like autoimmune conditions, like diabetes, not like autoimmune, but like these like longer chronic conditions, or can this also be help for like infectious diseases and increasing your general constitution robustness against things of that nature? Has there been any evidence to show that you can also help your constitution in that matter, or are we talking like more like your lupuses, your fibromyalgias, your cancers, your diabetes, more of those chronic diseases or metabolic disorders, or can epigenomics help those
My experience and what I've seen has been in the world of women's health. It's been in the world of the big three. Let's face it, everybody really cares about, because not to say that autoimmune conditions aren't important. I just don't think they don't get as much noise as the big three: cancer, diabetes, heart disease, right? Yeah. Well, if you look on the website, 9 out of 10 diseases are genomic causes. But I mean, to a certain degree, if we were to say that autoimmune conditions are a genomic condition, right? What is it about the immune system? I would have to do a little bit more research. I can say right now that I'm not going to take a stance or an opinion on it because I haven't done the research on it. But if I had to say, right, if the mechanism is there, how do we kind of get control over the genetic message in the immune system? Because we know we've applied acupuncture on autoimmune conditions, and we've seen people improve and do better, whether we're reducing the inflammation from the actual immune system of attacking. But I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know because I have to look into that.
Yeah. Probably.
And it's okay not to know. We don't know everything. By the way, your doctor doesn't know everything.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. And if we don't, we go in the back and we check the textbook. Full disclosure.
I mean, you have to leave something for the future generations.
Yes.
Anyway, right?
Yes.
So
now that you put it, you lit a fire under my ass, Greg. Now I got to get an answer. Maybe it'll be down the road. But right now we're preparing for the course. Right. If you're an acupuncturist tuning in, join us on April 15th. I think, listen, I don't know what I think. I think it's great, but you should make that decision for yourself. But I think this stuff is groundbreaking, and we'll go over everything. The one thing I will say about epigenetics, it is vast. It is huge. If you ask anybody about it, and not to quote our current administrator, it is huge. It's too big for any one person. There's too much information, because if you think about the genome and the thousands upon thousands of genes that are on there, think about everything that influences that gene, from diet to acupuncture to cold bath plunges, which you don't have to do anymore, and red light laser therapy. It's too big, and the community out there really leans on each other and sharing the information, and that's what bioinformatics is. Like, you can look up terms and go on PubMed and get information on cancer, on autoimmune disease. So maybe let's make a promise and say we're going to look into this together.
Oh,
we're going to work on it for our future episode. But join us on April 15th at the Eastern School.
Yeah. And stay tuned for afterwards. We're going to give you as a special recipe so you guys can start implementing those cert foods into your diet now, so you can start working to live longer and have happy and healthier life outcomes. Take care and see you next week.
Was that a snooze fest? Was that a snooze fest?